Politics might seem like something only a few people care about, but it affects everything, from the food on your table to the way you view the world. Did you know that nearly 70% of people across the globe live in countries where corruption is widespread? Or that over half of the world's population has been directly affected by political instability in the past decade? These numbers aren't just statistics, they show how powerful political systems really are. In this video, we're diving deep into how politics shapes our daily lives, our economies, and even our beliefs. You'll discover why populism is on the rise and how leaders today are using technology to steer entire nations. We'll break down how political systems create both opportunity and inequality, often in ways you might never have imagined. From hidden economic strategies to the rise of online echo chambers, we'll explore how these forces can make or break societies. Stay tuned to learn how everything from education to healthcare is shaped by politics, and what you can do to understand the system that impacts you the most. Ready to dive in? Let's uncover the truth behind the systems that shape our world. Chapter 1: The Invisible Hand. How systems shape our daily lives. Every system around us, from politics to economics to culture, is built to shape our everyday experiences. A lot of times, these influences are invisible, like the air we breathe. Yet, systems make huge impacts on what we can and can't do, often without us even realizing it. Take education, for instance. In many countries, the curriculum is designed to either empower or limit the population's thinking. Countries with more progressive systems like Finland often see students achieving better results because their education focuses on creativity and critical thinking, not just test scores. In more controlled systems, like those in some authoritarian states, education can focus solely on national pride and loyalty, rather than problem-solving skills. This isn't by accident. It's a strategy. Political systems create structures that influence how individuals view themselves and the world. Economic systems, too, play a role in shaping our choices. For instance, in capitalist societies, you're often trained to believe success equals wealth. This creates a culture where money and status drive decisions, sometimes at the expense of social bonds or happiness. A fascinating stat comes from a report by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. It shows that countries with greater economic equality, like Denmark, report happier citizens. The social contract there is built on fairness, trust, and shared resources. This contrasts sharply with highly unequal systems like the US, where wealth disparities are a major driver of social unrest. The invisible hand of politics also controls healthcare. In countries like Canada, where healthcare is seen as a human right, the system reflects the government's commitment to equality. Contrast that with the US, where healthcare is tied to wealth and insurance, and you can see the drastic differences in access and outcomes. These systems don't just impact lives, they shape identities, values, and entire generations. Chapter 2: The Power Play. Why populism isn't just a buzzword. Populism often gets tossed around as a buzzword. But at its core, populism is a strategy, a way for political figures to claim they represent the people against a corrupt elite. It's not a new concept. It has existed for centuries, but in today's digital age, it has evolved into a powerful tool. Populist movements play on people's frustrations with the system, often using direct, emotional messaging. These leaders understand that emotions drive action more than logic. Take former US President Donald Trump, for example. He mastered the populist playbook, using social media to rally people around him and against what he called the Washington elite. His ability to communicate with working-class Americans, who felt left behind by globalization and traditional politics, made him a force to be reckoned with. Populism often feeds off societal divisions. It thrives in times of economic uncertainty, when people feel their lives are not improving. A study from the European Union Agency for Fundamental Rights shows that economic hardship is one of the primary reasons people turn to populism. In countries like Hungary and Poland, populist leaders have taken advantage of economic inequalities to increase their control and influence. The rise of populism isn't confined to the West. In Brazil, President Jair Bolsonaro's brand of populism capitalized on anti-establishment sentiments, with promises to restore traditional values and confront corruption. This strategy, which often targets the media, intellectuals, and elites, has proven effective in rallying people who feel disconnected from the mainstream political system. However, populism isn't always a clear path to success. As we've seen in countries like Italy and the UK, populist movements can often lead to chaos, instability, and even economic decline. While populist leaders promise solutions, their polarizing rhetoric can fracture societies and make it harder to find common ground. Chapter 3: Redesigning Reality. Political systems as social architects. Political systems are more than just governance structures, they are the architects of societies. Every law passed, every policy created, and every speech made is an attempt to redesign the social fabric. Take a look at the Scandinavian countries like Sweden or Norway. Their political systems are designed to provide high levels of social welfare and ensure that everyone has access to opportunities. In these countries, the social contract revolves around trust and mutual benefit. Contrast that with authoritarian regimes, like North Korea, where the political system is aimed at maintaining control, not nurturing social cohesion. In such systems, everything, from media to education to even cultural celebrations, is crafted to reinforce the idea of loyalty to the state. People's everyday experiences are shaped by these systems, often in ways that limit personal freedom and creativity. There's a fascinating concept called social engineering, and it's something governments have used for centuries. It refers to the idea that governments can shape society through laws, policies, and cultural norms. One famous example is the one-child policy in China, which was implemented to control population growth. While the policy has since been relaxed, the impact it had on the social structure of China is still felt today, especially in terms of gender dynamics. On the other hand, countries with more liberal political systems, like Canada and New Zealand, have focused on creating inclusive societies. These systems promote multiculturalism, gender equality, and LGBTQ+ rights. Their political architecture is designed to be flexible and responsive to the needs of diverse populations. As a result, these countries often rank high in terms of quality of life and citizen happiness. The most profound impact of political systems as social architects is on identity. Where you grow up and the system that governs you have a lasting effect on how you view yourself and your role in the world. Take the rise of feminism in the 20th century. The political movements advocating for gender equality changed not just laws but also how societies view gender roles. In more open systems, these changes spread quickly. In more conservative regimes, progress tends to be slower and more contentious. It's important to realize that political systems are not static. They evolve based on the people within them and the challenges they face. In times of crisis, like wars or pandemics, the nature of the system might shift to meet the urgent needs of the population. The COVID-19 pandemic, for example, reshaped how many countries view healthcare, technology, and government intervention. The political decisions made during the crisis will likely affect future generations and define new norms in society. In the end, politics is the ultimate driver of the direction in which societies move. It can either push societies toward greater unity and equality or toward division and conflict. The systems we live under have an immense power to reshape our values, our freedoms, and our future. If you're finding this breakdown fascinating, make sure to hit the subscribe button to stay updated with more insights into the political systems shaping our world. Chapter 4: The Economic Engine: How Politics Forges Our Financial Futures. Economics and politics are inextricably linked. Political systems determine economic policies, which, in turn, shape how wealth is distributed. The way countries approach taxation, regulation, and trade directly impacts the lives of their citizens. Take the difference between a capitalist economy like that of the US and a socialist economy like Cuba. In capitalist systems, the market largely dictates wealth, while in socialist systems, the state plays a larger role in redistribution and equality. One striking statistic comes from the World Bank, which shows that countries with more progressive tax systems tend to have lower levels of income inequality. For example, Denmark has a high tax rate but also ranks as one of the happiest and most economically stable countries. High taxes are used to fund universal healthcare, education, and a strong social safety net. In contrast, countries like the US have lower taxes but also higher levels of poverty and a shrinking middle class. Economic strategies don't just influence income levels, they also shape job markets. In a market-driven system like the US, workers are often at the mercy of companies, and wages can be volatile. In countries with more worker protections, like Germany, the system focuses on stability and long-term employment. Here, workers have stronger union representation and greater job security. This shows how political systems create environments that either empower or hinder the individual. Global trade policies are another area where politics and economics intersect. Free trade agreements, like the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, were designed to increase the flow of goods and services between countries. However, the political decisions surrounding these agreements often have unintended consequences. For example, NAFTA led to factory closures in the US, where cheaper labor in Mexico led companies to relocate production, leaving many Americans unemployed. In the digital age, economic systems also need to consider the role of technology. With the rise of artificial intelligence, automation, and robotics, entire industries are being reshaped. Politicians who fail to account for these changes risk leaving their countries behind. A 2020 study by the McKinsey Global Institute found that automation could displace up to 375 million jobs worldwide by 2030. This presents both a challenge and an opportunity for political leaders to implement policies that support workers while embracing new technologies. The way a country's political system handles these challenges can either foster innovation or cause stagnation. Look at Silicon Valley. Its economic success is not just because of innovation but also due to favorable tax laws, immigration policies, and regulations that encourage entrepreneurship. In countries where the political system is less supportive of innovation, such as in authoritarian regimes, growth is often stifled by heavy-handed control and restrictions on business. In the end, politics dictates the rules of the economic game. Whether countries embrace free market policies or opt for more state-controlled economies, the political landscape directly influences who wins, who loses, and how wealth is distributed. This is why understanding the intersection of politics and economics is key to understanding how wealth and opportunities are shaped around the world. Chapter 5: Echo Chambers and Algorithms. The politics of information in today's world. Information is everything. The way we perceive the world, make decisions, and form opinions is shaped by the information we receive. Political systems play a huge role in this process, often shaping the flow of information through media and technology. Take social media. It's become a key tool for both politicians and populist movements to influence public opinion. However, it's not just about sharing information, it's about creating narratives and controlling the conversation. Algorithms on platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube decide what information we see, often showing us content that aligns with our existing beliefs. This is called the filter bubble. A 2016 study by Eli Parisa, author of The Filter Bubble, found that algorithms on social media create echo chambers that reinforce users' views, limiting exposure to diverse perspectives. In political terms, this means that voters might only see content that supports their political beliefs, deepening societal divisions. Populist leaders are well aware of this power. By using social media, they bypass traditional media channels, directly communicating with their followers. Former US President Donald Trump's use of Twitter is a prime example. He regularly bypassed the mainstream media to speak directly to his audience, often using emotionally charged language to rally support. This strategy is not just about information, it's about creating a sense of belonging and collective action among supporters. The rise of fake news is another crucial factor. The spread of false or misleading information, often amplified by social media algorithms, has become a central issue in modern politics. A study by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, found that false information spreads faster and more widely on Twitter than true information. This has created an environment where it's hard to discern fact from fiction, leading to confusion and distrust in the media. What's even more concerning is how algorithms are designed to maximize engagement, not accuracy. Facebook, for example, is designed to show content that generates the most likes, shares, and comments, which often means prioritizing sensationalist or emotionally charged stories. These algorithms don't care about the truth, they care about keeping people hooked. And as they do, political narratives get shaped, distorted, and manipulated. This creates a vicious cycle. As populists and other political figures exploit these platforms, they deepen existing divisions within society. The political climate becomes more polarized, and it becomes harder to find common ground. This is why some argue that algorithms need to be reformed. Some governments are now calling for more regulation of tech companies to curb the spread of misinformation, but the battle is ongoing. Ultimately, the politics of information is about power, the power to shape narratives, influence opinions, and control discourse. The algorithms that dictate what information we see are an essential part of this strategy, and understanding how they work can help us make better decisions about the content we consume. Chapter 6: Revolution or Reform. Can systems evolve without collapsing? When a political system becomes outdated, or fails to meet the needs of the people, it often faces two paths: reform or revolution. Reform is the idea of improving the system within its existing framework, while revolution suggests a complete overthrow and rebuilding of the system from the ground up. Throughout history, both strategies have been used to bring about change, but which is more effective? Take the US civil rights movement of the 1960s, for example. The movement sought to reform an existing system of racial segregation through legal battles, peaceful protests, and legislative change. Key figures like Martin Luther King Jr. and organizations like the NAACP pushed for reforms like the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It was a successful effort that changed the political and social landscape without overthrowing the entire system. Contrast that with the French Revolution in 1789, where revolution was the only option for those who felt oppressed by the aristocracy. The French people, tired of inequality and poverty under an outdated political system, chose to fight for a new order. The revolution led to the fall of the monarchy and the rise of the republic, changing not only France but the entire course of history in Europe. Some argue that revolution is necessary when a political system is so corrupt or out of touch with the people that reform is impossible. One example is the Arab Spring in 2011, where protests spread across the Middle East in response to authoritarian regimes. In many cases, revolution led to regime change, though not always in the way people hoped. In some countries, like Egypt, revolutions were followed by political instability and economic decline. Reform, on the other hand, is often seen as a safer path. It allows for gradual change and avoids the chaos that comes with revolution. However, reform can also be frustratingly slow, especially when political elites resist change. In some cases, reform may even be co-opted by those in power, leading to superficial changes that don't address the root issues. Whether reform or revolution is the better strategy depends largely on the circumstances. The state of the economy, the level of political repression, and the strength of social movements all play a role in determining which path is more likely to succeed. Some argue that the world today is ripe for reform, as global movements push for things like climate action, wealth redistribution, and universal rights. Others believe that the systems are so entrenched that only a revolution can bring about real change. In the end, whether political systems evolve through revolution or reform, one thing is clear: change is inevitable. Political systems are always in flux, responding to the needs of the people. The challenge is to ensure that these changes are positive and lead to a fairer, more just world for everyone. If you found these insights compelling, don't forget to subscribe and stay updated on more deep dives into the systems that shape our world.